Ran those stories, and everybody started coming by to see it.
Pinky is 58 years old. She is semi-retired now, which simply means she does what she wants when she wants to.
Pinky is the star of Parrot Jungle. In 1964, she represented Florida in the New York World's Fair.
Maybe a lot of people remember Pinky from back then. She's very famous. Okay, Pink. Even though she's 58 years old, she likes to be around crowds. She likes to hear applause. Believe it or not, these birds, they do respond by signals and by sounds, and she gets very excited when she rides her bicycle. You'll see. If she doesn't have attention, she'll start screaming. I mean, screaming her head off and go nuts. And she won't stop until you get there, pet her, play with her, kiss her, and do this. She loves it. Look at this. Look at that face.
And there you have the one and only Pinky, the cockatoo. Good job, Pinky. Very nice.
Florida, where you get school credit for learning to water ski.
What became Cypress Gardens' trademark started just for fun.
The kids would water ski and play around, and some soldiers came up from the base, and they said, "What time does the water ski show start?" So when the kids got out of high school, they came out there and started the first show. That's how it was. Wasn't organized. Just put it on for the military.
Patrick Callan began his 20-year career at Cypress Gardens while still in college.
Whatever they needed, I did it. I used to help the photographers, and that's where I got my interest in photography, so I started shooting a lot of pictures, too.
After college, Callan was asked by Dick Pope to head up public relations for the park.
Little bits of paper or ideas that he'd see in a magazine. I mean, you could always tell when he read a magazine because he tore all the pages out and came up with ideas for pictures. My job was to get a national release every week, and that's what I did.
Welcome to Florida's beautiful Cypress Gardens, water ski capital of the world.
People used to arrive at Cypress Gardens thinking we were a major resort, you know, with everything. It was just a small attraction at the time. We were probably the biggest in Florida, but it was still not that large. We had Miss Worlds and Miss Americas come down and Miss Universe. He had very attractive women, and he would work with them, and they looked very good.
Along the way, lovely girls greet you.
We knew if we gave them something, it had sex appeal, but it was not sexy type. It was not, it was wholesome, and that's the image we put across.
She's young and sprightly, and she's dignified and beautiful. You have to see her and meet her in person. She'll welcome you. You may not believe what you see.
Here in the Sunshine State, good-looking girls and smooth convertibles are as much a part of the scenery as palm trees against the blue sky.
One thing that Florida used a lot of in its advertising and in its roadside attractions were girls in skimpy outfits. And that could take a lot of different forms.
These scaly creatures are fed 3 times daily by a pretty Indian maiden.
Of course, in those days, it was usually Dad who did the driving, and he would be the one who would stop at those places. If Mom was doing the driving, she would probably say, oh, we're not going to stop there.
Yeah, we had iguana and macaque, and that was a Malaysian otter. And that was a pretty girl. You'd see some good-looking girls in the bathing suits of that time with the little skirts on the front, no bikinis, see? And they were still good-looking girls. Boom.
Garden spot on Florida's sun-filled Gulf Coast. A group of girls swim for a living. They perform in Weeki Wachee Springs' famed underwater mermaid show.
One of the many individuals who contributed to Florida's tourism was Newton Perry, the fellow who developed the idea for Weeki Wachee Springs. He had been a Navy frogman, and his experience with underwater breathing and air hoses and so forth is what inspired him to have young girls swimming underwater using the air hoses to breathe.
Back when I was in high school, we used to come up here to Weeki Wachee Springs and go swimming. It was our swimming hole. And one day we came up here, my brother Ed brought us up here in his Model A Ford, and all of a sudden there were these ropes around the spring and it said, "Do not enter." And we were just horrified. Here's our swimming hole. What are they doing to it? So we didn't let that stop us. I went out and found out who was doing what. And I found this nice gentleman, and his name was Newt Perry. And I said, "Mr. Perry, what are you doing to our swimming hole?" And he said, "Well, we're going to have a live mermaid show underwater. And we're going to have an underwater theater there, and we're going to have live mermaids swimming in front of the theater." And I said, "Oh, Mr. Perry," and I was only 15. I said, "How can I be one of those mermaids?" And he said, "Well, we're going to have tryouts Saturday." And he said, "You can come and bring your friends and come up here, and we're going to have tryouts." So you can believe I didn't sleep a wink Friday night. I think we were here at daylight. And guess what? We all made it. We would dive down, surface dive, and perform, do ballets, and then go back to the surface for air. We were kind of like the pioneers. This was a new concept, and Mr. Perry was a great instructor. When we first got Weeki Wachee open, there were very few cars that would drive back and forth on US 19, which is the highway out here. And it was just a 2-lane highway. So, you know, to hear a car come, which, you know, you could pretty much hear them coming down the road because Model A's were kind of noisy. We would rush out in our bathing suits and beckon them in. I don't know, it's just magical.
Times change, but there's always one place the whole world thinks of for sunshine. Florida.
When you need it bad, come to Florida. We got it good here, you need it bad. We've got it good.
While millions of visitors flocked to Florida, the state's older, smaller attractions faced an ongoing series of challenges. Attitudes were changing. The way people traveled was changing. Where they traveled was changing. In short, times were changing.
One of the great changes in tourism was the interstate highway system and the revolution in travel.
The idea was just that there would be these expressways that people could just get on and drive without having to stop for traffic lights. They didn't have to worry about someone pulling out in front of them, and it would make the trip a lot faster. Of course, what we lost with that was a sense of place, because the interstates generally do not run near any sort of commercial development, so one interstate looks very much like another one. You don't see the little quirks in the different towns and so forth.
Ironically, the interstates, a system which brought in millions of new travelers, eroded the foundations of the old tourist industry. Americans no longer wanted to travel on the Scenic Highlands Trail or the Dixie Highway or the Tamiami Trail. They wanted to rush to Miami or rush to Orlando.
Hi-ho, it's home to work we go.
This is the most important day in the progress and the future development of this state.
The opening of Disney World was the Big Bang in Florida tourism, and arguably the Big Bang in the state. It's almost as if one can describe a Florida AD and BD, before Disney, after Disney. So profound, so transforming was the coming of Disney.
This, all of our attractions believe, is the greatest thing that ever happened to them and to Florida. And we welcome Walt Disney, his brother Roy, and all the rest of them with open arms.
When Disney first came to Florida, I don't think anyone quite knew how to react to it. They knew that it was going to be a big deal.
Florida was becoming a very different place, and not all parks were ready.
And then one Mickey Mouse, and then SeaWorld came in. You can feel it. 95 was getting all the thing. A1A used to be the big road, and I could feel the difference, and I can see the difference, and it started going downhill. And it was very, very depressing, you know.
The old image is that Disney literally built a wall across the state that kept visitors from going any further south. If you ask anybody in Miami, that's what they'll tell you. I don't know that that's necessarily true, because now people have, by this time, they have gotten Disney out of their system, and they're exploring the old Florida, places that they went to when they were a kid. They're coming back and they're bringing their children and their grandchildren. And so we're seeing a lot of repeat visitation right now.